tuned for the interview. Welcome to Chat with Virgil. Welcome with Chatting with Virgil. I have Manuel with Woodlake Botanical Garden. Staying tuned for the interview. Welcome to Chatting with Virgil. Hello, Manuel. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good, Virgil.
So tell me the year of the Woodlake Botanicals when it started.
Well, well, first, the name of our garden is the Woodlake Botanical Garden, and it's located in Woodlake. It actually is 14 acres in size, but we have an additional 15 acres that the city purchased to extend the garden. But we actually started in 2001. That was when Greg Collins, our city manager, our city actually planner, applied for a Rails to Trails grant and was awarded. The city was awarded a grant to purchase the land. So for $70,000, which is today's money is nothing, they bought 1 mile of garden property, and then by 2003, the same person applied for a construction grant, and we're able to do the hardscape in the gardens. So between 2001 and 2003, the large equipment came in, ripped the soil, leveled the ground, made some hills. We put in water for part of the garden, and that's when we actually started the garden. So in the end of 2003 was when we started planting.
What happened to the railroad track that used to be here?
Well, matter of fact, the railroad company came and removed all the tracks and all the metal that goes with it, and disappeared. It would have been nice to have the train go through here with the gardens. It would have been so cool. But no, yeah, they took all the materials that made up the tracks. They took the rocks, the rocks, the large boards, and the rails, the steel rails.
And how long did it take to develop this garden?
Well, now that was in 2003 when we started. Now it's 2022, which is 19 years later. The gardens, in terms of the permanent plants, we probably did most of the permanent plants in the first 10 years. So the orchards that we have, the ornamental flower areas that we have, the native areas that we have been complete for that long of a time.
Okay. And how many plants do you have throughout the garden?
Oh, I couldn't tell you how many, but definitely we have, of course, thousands of plants. For example, just the rose garden alone, in both rose gardens, we probably have at least 4,000 rose plants and 250 varieties. And then most of the orchards that we have, they're mostly edible gardens, because in citrus we have about 80 varieties, and stone fruit over 200 varieties. And all the other edible crops we have, they're collections of fruit. So there be cherries or apricots, citrus, whatever. They're orchards that we encourage people to taste when they come to the gardens.
Oh. And what kind of citrus do you have?
What kind of citrus? Well, just about everything you can imagine, from limes to
You have limes.
limes, lemons, tangors, navels, valencias, and special varieties. So most of the varieties we have here, you're never going to see in the market, because they're very unique varieties that were actually provided to us by the University of California.
How did you guys retrieve these citrus plants?
Well, a friend of ours who worked for the University of California, Raul Gonzalez, he actually went out and selected varieties for us, unique varieties. So we have, for example, a lot of unique stuff that you're not going to see anyplace else, that you won't find in the market, but also things that were uniquely flavored. And also, for example, valencias or navels. We have early valencias, some that actually ripen in the late fall, and some ripen in the dead of winter, and some actually can be harvested in the late summer. So we have citrus available from October to almost October.
Plants, do they grow in seasons? Like, what seasons do you guys have?
Well, when it comes to fruit trees and permanent plants, in the spring we start off by the first thing that matures is going to be blueberries and blackberries and strawberries. So we have a little bit of strawberries, and we have more blueberries and blackberries, but those start off the season in April. So followed by, of course, all the stone fruit. So the apricots, the peaches, plums, aprons, plumcots, they come later, and they actually mature from May all the way into late August.
And do you have any special events that you have out the year?
Yes, we do. Each year we have a blueberry event. Actually, not a. We have a berry event where we offer collections of blueberries. So that means several varieties of blueberries, several varieties of strawberries, several varieties of blackberries, raspberries, even mulberries.
We're sitting under one.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
anyways,
We're sitting under a Pakistani mulberry tree.
Oh,
yes.
Pakistan mulberry tree. Wow.
And those berries are about 4 inches long when they get really big,
Oh, you do have
and uniquely
lines.
flavored. They're really delicious.
Oh, wow. You do.
So, anyways,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Right behind
So-
you is zapote.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a tropical. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're sitting at the tropical garden. So here in the garden we have, I can't name them all, but of course we have white zapote, we have papaya, guayaba, mango, longan. So we have tropical fruit from Asia, tropical fruit from Central and South America, tropical fruit from Hawaii. So we even grow pineapples, by the way, in the garden. So we
Ooh, I
we
love
grow an assortment of things. So when people come, they can see a lot of different things, and then depending on the availability, then we encourage people to taste. So not all things have a lot available. For example, we're only going to have like 4 or 5 pineapples, so we can't tell the public take a pineapple. So we want it's for exhibition only. Or other fruits, we may only have one tree of one thing, and so we don't want people to take it. So we'll say, please do not take from this tree. We might give them a little taste. But the other orchards, where we say, when the stone fruit starts ripening, we encourage them to taste the peaches, or the apricots, or the cherries, and like that. And so, but not everything is available to eat equally.
I have a question about that plant there. What kind of plant is that? Is that green right there?
That is jacaranda.
Oh, is it?
Jacaranda.
It looks like a
Jacaranda.
Yeah, it looks like a
A fern.
yeah, like a fern.
It looks like a fern. Yeah, the leaves are really small.
You know those little plants that I don't want to use the
They grow understory in the forest.
Yeah.
Those are ferns. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
But I don't know if you've ever seen the California Gold. Hugh Hauser, he did a tour on jacarandas in the Southern California area.
Wow.
And they're beautiful in the spring. They flower and they're purple color. So you have these huge areas down there that get these flowers, and we're expecting that these trees, when they mature, they're also going to put on a show and have full coverage of purple flowers.
Oh,
But
wow.
they won't be
Pretty.
as tall as the ones in the south.
Yeah, these are actually semi-dwarf. They're on semi-dwarf rootstocks, so they're not going to get as tall as the trees in Southern California or even Brazil. Brazil has a lot of them.
Oh, wow. I know earlier you mentioned that they purchased another land.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, in addition to the 14 acres we have in this original site, which was the railroad right-of-way, the city purchased an additional 15 acres. It still is a citrus orchard, and eventually that's going to be developed as part of the garden.
Oh, do you know what plans or what you plan to do with that?
Well, right now I think between ourselves and the city, everybody's really extremely busy, and so I think right now that's sort of being sort of postponed but eventually we will put together a group that will discuss the theme and what we want to do with that piece of land.
Oh, wow. Tell me about the volunteers and stuff that you were.
I'll let Olga talk about
Yes,
that, because
Olga, tell me
she's
about
the
that.
one that works a lot with volunteers
Yes,
over the
definitely
years.
volunteers.
And actually, not just these gardens started in 2003 when we started planting, but we've been planting the gardens from the 1980s.
Uh-huh.
So we had gardens all over town, and she'll tell you a little bit about that.
Manuel had a community garden in the city of Visalia. And I said to him, well, why can't we have one in Woodlake?
Yeah.
And he says, you know what? That's a good idea. So we used to have a lot over on the west side of the lake, of the Bravo Lake. And we used to plant all kinds of, I never knew there was like 150 varieties of sunflowers. I never knew that, there could be so many different colored ones. And so when the season was over and the tractor would come by and turn everything up, I would just look at all my hours and the children's hours that were turned up, and I go, there goes the garden. So I told him, you know what? The next place, I want it to be a permanent site. So this is the permanent site.
Oh, wow.
So there's no tractor turning anything over here.
Yeah.
So at least you can see something that you plant and you see it grow as the years go by. And where we were at the first place, it was a colonia. A bunch of little kids lived in that area. And they slowly started coming out and were curious what we were doing. And we showed them what we're doing, planting. And every day after school, they would run over to where we were and help us. And we said, well, that's kind of interesting. These little kids are interested in it. So then when we moved over here to this site, they followed us.
Hmm.
And then, like I said, my daughter was a fourth grade teacher, and she brought her whole group, and they enjoyed it, and they stayed with us. And I think the carrot was probably taking them to lunch,
Yeah.
and they would have their hamburger, fries, and their drink, and they'd be all happy. And the kids, sometimes they would barely arrive, and they'd say, "What are we going to eat today?" And I said, "Wait a minute, you haven't earned your hamburger yet." But I think that's what was drawing them at first. And as the years went by, the the school started the community service where the kids had to do 85 hours of community service in order to graduate. And that's where we got the older kids. But we first started out with little ones, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then we graduated on to the high school kids. And the students, I don't want to say kids, the students enjoy being out here because they get to really know each other more than in the classroom situation.
Mhm.
Some of them don't even know each other's names, and I say, well, introduce yourself, you know. And they go, yeah, he's in my class, but I don't know his name. I said, well, this is a good place to get to know each other.
Yeah.
And so the students, I think, really look forward to coming on Saturdays and having fellowship with the other high school students, and learning to get along and following orders and staying on task. At first, it's kind of difficult because you hand them a tool, and then they come back and you look at them and you go, "Where's your tool?" And then they go, "Oh, I better go get it." I said, "Yes, when we issue out a tool, please bring it back." And that was a little something they had to learn to do.
Yeah.
And as the years went by, we would see them grow up and graduate. Then we start with a new, I would say, like crop of students.
Mhm.
And it's beginning to, the beginning is always to teach them and train them. And then they get to be really good at using some equipment that they wouldn't use somewhere else. But that equipment manual has to be around because it's for safety reasons.
Mhm.
But I always get the little ones, or I get the ones that Manuel doesn't want to deal with.
Olga, I thought all the kids are very good. Actually, most of the kids are very good. Um, I should say that in the beginning, we did plant collections of annuals, so the flowers and vegetables. One year we planted about 1,500 varieties, 1,500 varieties of plants. So we had 100 and some varieties of sunflowers. We had 50 varieties of tomatoes, every kind of tomato you can imagine. Orange ones, red ones, pink ones, yellow ones, purple ones, big ones, little ones, sour ones, sweet ones. We planted radishes, every radish you can imagine, from little red ones to big giant black ones that are black outside, white on the inside, green on the outside, pink on the outside. Radishes that were 18 inches in length and 2 inches in diameter. We planted just a full collection of everything that we thought we could teach people about. But what happened is that, number one, was that I worked for the University of California, and I did research on vegetables and tropicals. And so I brought my ideas and my list of vegetables to the gardens. And so the kids, once we started growing all these vegetables, every Saturday we would give them vegetables to take home. Well, we had a rebellion one year.
Oh,
These
really?
kids show up at the garden and they said, we're not coming anymore if you're going to send us home with vegetables, because our parents are making us eat the vegetables and we don't like vegetables. I said, oh, okay. So, this whole thing about teaching kids about vegetables, well, I don't know if it's that true, because these kids, especially, you're giving them pak choy, You've given them Asian vegetables. You're giving them Indian vegetables. Things they never tasted before. They take them home, and the parents are fixing them for them. I don't know how they know how to cook Asian vegetables, but
Yeah.
in the Napa cabbage, for example, we have different kinds of Napa cabbage: Savoy cabbages, green cabbages, red cabbages, silver cabbages, and so they would take all these vegetables home, and then they would prepare them for the kids, and the kids probably got really sick from them. But they came and they said, if you continue to insist that we take vegetables home, we're not going to come anymore.
What happened?
So then we started growing mostly watermelons and tomatoes and chilies and strawberries. So we're melons. Every the cantaloupes. You can't eat. There's French melons. There's cassavas. There's crenshaws. There's all these different things. We were planting tons of this, and they love the sweet stuff, right? But not the greens. So the greens we planted less. It was for exhibition. We didn't send them home with greens. We sent them home with cassavas and watermelons. And of course the watermelons, some were pink, some were white, some were red, some were orange. All the different colors you can imagine in the flesh, they exist. And I started doing some work very early with the personal watermelons, which are really small ones. So we would grow really small watermelons that were yellow in color on the outside and red on the inside, red flesh, and then big giant watermelons.
Oh, wow.
And if kids, of course, they couldn't carry the big ones, so I had to pick little ones.
Do you still have the sunflowers?
The sunflowers, no. The most we plant now is maybe like 20 or 30 varieties of sunflowers.
Okay.
But there's specialized flowers. So the sunflowers we grow sometimes are either white, green, purple, yellow, red. And so the odd colors. And so we mostly grow what they call single flowers. The flowers follow. And what's interesting too on the flowers is that some flowers follow the sun. Sunflowers.
Oh, really?
And so if you plant a single flower on the wrong side of your house, for example, in the garden, we learned right away that if we planted them on the south side of the road, guess which side they're going to be facing?
The east,
South.
South side?
That means they would have their backs to you.
Oh.
They're smiling the other way.
They're smiling down.
So we knew that we had to plant all the singles on the north side of the road so they would face south, because the sun actually even goes east to west. East to west, the flowers face south because the sun is slightly to the south. So in the morning, the flower is facing to the east, and then it follows the sun all the way to the west. And eventually, when the stems get a lot of lignin, which makes them hard, then they stop, and they mostly stop facing the south. Now, the sunflowers that are they call branching, they have many, many flowers. The only flower that follows the sun is the original big flower on top. The rest of them are facing all directions. So those we would put on the south side of the road.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
So in the gardens, of course, we learned a lot of things too. And not only that, our kids, when they were very young, we did a study on day degree calculations. So when people asked us, when do I plant sunflowers? So for example, day degrees is the amount of heat that you get in one day, right? And then flowers require so much, a cumulative amount of hours from seed to flower. So what we did is we calculated scientifically how many degree days it would take to make each one of these varieties flower. And then eventually we could actually plant, and we did. We planted 150 varieties of sunflowers, and they all bloom in the same day. The same week we had in October, all the varieties that were mature in 50 days, 60 days, 70 days, 90 days, 120 days, they all bloomed at the same time because we had made a model, so we knew when we had to plant. So we had to plant 80 days before we planted the last seed. So we had to plant 80 days out, or 120 days out, 80 days out, 60 days out, 40 days out, but they all bloomed at the same time. So
wow.
it's just, you're never going to see that. But in this one instant, I remember one of the city council people, they actually wept and said, "This is so beautiful. This is like heaven. I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life." But anyways, it was that we had, and then they cascade. Some are short, some are medium size, some are tall, some are singles, some are branched, a lot of flowers. So we had to do a lot of work preparing for that. So we had prepared for 2-3 years before we did this major planting. So our kids actually did some research, and were able to successfully plant all the flowers at one time. And we're able to recommend what to do to Sunset Magazine for planting the flowers to be able to do weddings and stuff like that. The guy who wrote the story in Sunset for Woodlake Pride, we did a project with him because his daughter was getting married. So we gave him the exact. We just got the date that she was going to get married, and then we looked at the day degree on the. If you look at the UC that we have, the UC IPM Center, you can find the day degrees backwards, and then see this is the planting date for this variety. This is the planting date for this variety. and then plant them in the right locations. So for his wedding, it was successful. All the sunflowers were in bloom when his daughter got married, so it was really exciting for him.
Wow. And you were in the magazine. You guys got in the magazine?
Yes, oh yes,
Oh wow.
a long time ago.
Wow. What year was that?
It's before we started this garden because part of the
Before this.
we had this piece of land before the big garden.
Oh, okay.
So this is not part of the garden right here.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that had to have been probably 25 years ago.
Do you guys keep the magazine? Did you guys keep the magazine?
Oh yes, we have a magazine somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh wow. See that there? What is that for? I see you have like a teepee.
Teepee?
Yeah, teepee. What's that?
Well, that used to be our little meeting house. So what we do is we grow. Before this tree got really big, we used to plant morning glories around it, and the morning glories would grow up like a teepee. It'd be a purple.
The morning glory.
It would either be a purple or a
plant?
blue teepee, and then we put little chairs in there, and we'd meet like this inside the teepee.
Oh.
And we would say, we'd get together and talk. We make exaggerations, and finally we'd say lies to each other. But we'd spend a lot of time in there talking.
There was a lady that came to visit the garden on a serious note, and she noticed that her children were running through the teepee. They were running in and out, and she said, you know what? I can make that at my house, and my children will enjoy it. And I said, yeah, it's an idea you can do. I said, you can use whatever kind of material. We happen to have bamboo.
Yeah.
And so I said, wow, people can take ideas home.
Yeah.
And it was just an idea for us to see the beautiful morning glory climb up.
Now, when you guys mentioned the morning glory, is that a plant or is that like the sun?
It's a plant. We have some down the road.
Oh.
But yes. The morning glories are different. It's amazing, the plants. We have morning glories that grow in the spring. We have morning glories that only bloom in the fall, short days. And then we have morning glories that are gigantic and beautiful and smelly. Well, not smelly, they have a nice aroma, but they bloom at night. So you don't see the flower, you never see the flower open. They're big, giant white morning glories, the size of a gypsum weed. But gypsum weed is a native plant that grows near the rivers, but it has a big white flower. Well, this morning glory has a big, giant bloom, but it only opens at night. When the sun goes down, it opens and it stays open all night. And when the sun comes out, it closes forever. It only opens one day.